we have we've just sort of crossed the finish line, and I think both sides need to be congratulated for something that I think Ms. von der Leyen called the mother of all deals, and we just hope to see it in practice before long. Today we have with us Kaja Kallas, the High Representative of the Union for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy and the Vice President of the European Commission. Welcome to Ananta Center. This is one of our lovely buildings, and I'm really happy that you could be here. Just to tell everybody, this is also, we're treating this as a curtain raiser for the first India-EU forum that we're organizing on the 6th and 7th of February. We know that you cannot be there, but we wish you could, and we're hoping that the next one will see you there. But we'd just sort of like to get a sense from you about the relationship as you see it today. What were the conversations like? And I think everybody here would like to get a flavor of the conversations, how we look at building this relationship going forward. And over to you.
Yes, thank you, and it's really my honor to be here, so thank you for organizing this. It is two big democracies, and I think we have to put this in the geopolitical context, what everybody sees in the news every day. I think when I go around the world, I see more and more countries want to build partnerships with Europe because we are predictable, which is nowadays becoming a value. When we take a long time to negotiate deals, but when we do, then we stick to them. We actually, implement them. And that has become something that is of value. For the companies, if you have a constant threat of, tariffs in the air, then you don't really know what you have the next day, what you can really deal with. Now, when we get there finally, then we really keep our promises and keep our agreements. I think this is extremely important. Now, the geopolitical context is that we see multilateralism under constant strain or under heavy fire. We might even see that it doesn't exist anymore, so we need to build new partnerships with those countries that we share the same interests and really to try to find the way. And that is what the discussions has been about. Actually also building confidence in each other, listening to each other, because we can do a lot together on different fields, and we have mapped different fields when it comes to my competencies, security, defense, foreign policy, then, maritime security, very concrete thing where we have mutual interests, and then cybersecurity. Both we are encountering this. Also sharing information. We are entering into negotiations about that because, to make decisions, you have to be aware of the facts and intelligence that is there. Trade routes or supply chains that function, both of our interests. Clean energy, connectivity, there's a lot what we can do. But what we want this really to be is about, practical things and practical steps. We even talked with the ministers, is like, let's start with very concrete implementation things, because what it does, it builds trust. Yeah. So we start to trust each other, because if you don't know the other part, and then it's like, how is the work really playing out? But if you already see the way the other party is working, then you can also know what to expect, and then it's easier. So start with concrete deliverables, and there was a lot. So I think The feeling in the room is really genuine, genuine interest for building trade relations, but also other issues when it comes to geopolitical picture as well, because we see superpowers wanting to rewrite the multilateral order where everything is divided. We have seen that in the history before, and I don't think, coming from a small country, I can honestly say this is not in small countries and medium-sized countries' interest. Of course, India is not a small country, that's very clear, but still I think there's room for cooperation for the European Union with India also regarding foreign policy.
Right. We have sort of traveled quite a journey, and in a sense, the current geopolitical, shall we say, fragmentation of the world has in some ways helped brought the two powers together. We have you signed a security and defense partnership agreement, and we've been talking very recently of security and defense agenda between Europe and India. The European security theatre is slightly different from the Indian security theatre, but so how do you see this partnership in security and defense playing out?
Yes, our regions are different, but we have some very common challenges as well. I mean, let's start with the maritime security. Very concrete, weaponization of trade routes, weaponization of supply chains that we see, and this is in our mutual interest that it doesn't go that way. So this is something we already have, joint naval exercises, we can do more of them, but also there is interest in cooperation between our defense industries or our EU member states and also Indian defense industry, because you can see that we have this existential threat coming from Russia at this time. We have our member states increasing their defense expenditure, and then it also comes down where you can buy capabilities and with whom you can cooperate. Yes, of course, in the first round we also want to this money to go to the European industry, but if the European industry is not able to deliver, then we can buy outside. And I think the competition that comes from also such a big country like India is also beneficial for our industries to work then faster and to find solutions. So this is something very concrete. Then cybersecurity. We have learned a lot being under cyber attacks and what we can do. And what I always say is that it's clear in the cyberspace that, the bad guys work together. So the good guys should as well share information and address these issues, because nowadays it's not only an issue of the hardcore security, but it actually has an impact on the economy as well. If companies are cyber attacked, they could go out of business, not providing essential services that people need. So there is definitely room for cooperation. Hybrid threats, something that we are encountering now, but I think the actors who are using this are actually the same. So when I look at the picture, the Indo-Pacific and Europe, our security is very much intertwined and interlinked. If you zoom out of your region, you can see clear patterns that we both encounter.
That's true, and coming from Estonia, you have actually experienced a cyber war imposed on you, which is unique. I don't think any other country has had that kind of a war imposed on them. But you spoke about the Indo-Pacific, and if we zoom back to this part of the world, and there seems to be now a greater arena for EU-India cooperation, particularly on the Indo-Pacific. We've seen a number of EU member states which have come up with EU Indo-Pacific strategies, etc. What's your sense? And I'm asking this not merely in the sense of the strategy, but also in the current context, where we no longer trust people we trusted 2 days ago. So how do you?
Yes, that's a good question. I really have a feeling that our security is really interlinked, because I'm not only talking about the hardcore security, which is like defense and what what security is. I'm talking about economic security, for example. We both face economic coercive practices coming from China. And, to address this, alone, we are both weak, but together we are much stronger to stand up for this, because it's also, our companies that are hit, and if our companies are hit, our people are hit because of the prosperity and jobs are not there, and this is not fair. So again, that's why the free trade agreement is important, but also to think about it further, and there are other aspects there. So. I was last June. I was in Singapore for the Shangri-La dialogue, and there was Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth had a speech, and he was saying basically that you Europeans stay out of the Indo-Pacific, you deal with Europe and we deal with Indo-Pacific. I actually, coming from a small country, listening to that speech, I was like uncomfortable, because it sounded very much so that, we do here and we don't really care what do you think. I think that's the difference between us and some other players, is that we really want to have this genuine cooperation. Because we see, your region has worries, our region has worries. We don't always see eye to eye to all the issues, but let's work on those issues where we see eye to eye. Global challenges. Countering, terrorism, global terrorism, gangs, countering also the what I said, maritime security issues. These are something that is in both of our interests, and we can, find those places where we see a common approach. And then we can also, invite other countries to come in. We had the Indo-Pacific Ministerial, a very good forum, actually. Really, you can see the genuine interest of European countries and Indo-Pacific countries. So we had countries from, Africa to Asia. They're very much expressing the same worries. So I think, if the big players here agree, we can also, bring on board countries that are concerned about the same issues. Because also, I come back to the economic security part. The superpowers very often overestimate their own power and underestimate their need for anybody else. This is not, mistake you're never going to make when you come from a small country. You always know that you need others. You need to work with the others. Now, I think there, again, if we talk about the economic coercive practices, all of us are worried about this. Dealing with this separately, we are not able. But together we are able. So those countries who still believe in free trade should also stick together. And there is room for other issues to develop further.
That's interesting that you say that, because one of, the India-Japan, which is another of India's closest partners, I think the big focus of the relationship right now is economic security and on resilient supply chains, which is something that we are all talking about. And And I'm going to open up to questions from the floor, but before we start there, I just wanted to just ask you on one area, which is now something that we are thinking about, which we weren't thinking about recently, which is as factors of stability. We used to think of ourselves, or rather certain powers, as factors of stability, and that is a way we built relationships with them. When you look at the EU and India, and today, as in not in today's context, and if you were to look at us as factors of stability in a world that we are seeing breaking up or fragmenting in different ways, what would be your markers for areas of stability, and how would be these two powers in a world that is largely becoming multipolar? I mean, we are looking at a multipolar world as it is happening in real time, and so what would be your sense of what would be the factors of stability?
That is a very good question. I think, you can be geopolitical power if you are either a strong military power or you're strong economic power. European Union is not a strong military power yet, but we are definitely strong economic power, and that is our leverage as well. Now, coming to your question about factors of stability, because today we are we signed the free trade agreement, so this is really, I think, one of the factors of stability for our companies, actually. Whatever the agreement is, we need to know how this works, and we need to be firm that it's not changed by executive order the next day. Sure. Because even if you have whatever tariffs or things you agree between yourselves in a dignified manner, listening to the other party and understanding what are their concerns. But then I'm a lawyer by profession. I know that every agreement is a compromise. You can't go into the negotiations and say that we only have rights and the other side should only have obligations. This doesn't just work. That's not an agreement. So if we have reached an agreement, it's a compromise, then it means that we stick to it. Then also, our economies, our investors, our companies can, see, okay, this works, so it's better to take that route because, that is stable. Even, if we didn't like the some conditions for, every sector, it's different. But it gives you stability. So I think this is key in the world of, trade wars, I would say. Because there is a lot stemming from that. If you have, economic prosperity, then you also have, prosperity of the people. If you have prosperity of the people, then you have less dissatisfaction, and if it is so, then also less polarization in the society. So that's why I think the economic security at this moment is actually really key. Now, how do we deal with the real security part? And that is much harder because, like you said in your introduction, you don't really know who are your partners that you can rely on. Now, I think, and that's why we have also done this security and defense partnership with India, is that let's not put all the eggs in the same basket. Sure. And if we have, a lot of these agreements, then, we are not dependent on one factor. And that gives you stability, because, nobody can also somehow, use this vulnerability, because every dependence you have is also your vulnerability. And make sure you're dependent on friends, because the other side might hurt you. But in a world where you don't know actually who are your friends, then let's diversify the portfolios, whether it's trade, whether it's on security, whether it's on other issues. So let's have more partnerships.
Yeah, we define it as strategic autonomy in this part of the world. So in a sense, these are all familiar words. I'm going to open up to questions and no media questions. So.
Hello, I am the ambassador of Malta, and you mentioned that you come from a small country. We are an even smaller country. We know what it means to need others. In our cases, our geostrategic position in the middle of the Mediterranean can be affected a lot by IMEC. And my question to your good self is, now that we have the EU-India free trade agreement signed, we were thinking that it may not happen, or that it may happen in like only God knows how many years. Now, there is the same thought about IMEC, but seeing the positive way that the EU-India FTA was signed, how do you think that this would affect IMEC? Do you think that this would make IMEC more of a possibility in the much, much nearer future? And this is interesting for us especially because IMEC can affect, we are in the roots of the Suez Canal, so we're really, really interested to know about IMEC. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. We have had those discussions as well. I mean, and one of the parts that we are now developing further is connectivity on different fields, and IMEC is of course one of those that we can develop further. Now, I think again, building on this what we already have, I think it also shows the connectivity or necessity for the connectivity. If we have more trade, then we also need to have the trade routes that are functioning better, or functioning, or the diversity of different routes as well. So my estimate would be that it actually pushes this forward.
Mr. Muni, Professor Muni.
Thank you, Madam. Are there any areas of convergence between India and the UN, India and the EU in resolving the Ukraine conflict?
Thank you. I think the convergence is what we both believe is in peace, and we don't want this war to happen. We want this war to end. I think nobody wants it more than the Ukrainians want this war to end. Now, what we had in our discussions with our Indian counterparts was also to really raise from their side with the Russians as well, that they would also want peace. Because right now, Ukrainians have agreed to unconditional ceasefire already a year ago. From the Russian side, we only see, plays, games, and they are pretending to negotiate, but they are actually not negotiating. They are demanding their absolute maximum. They are also demanding the territories that they haven't even conquered militarily in 11 years. And this is not something that you can, build peace on. In order to have peace, you only need, you need at least two to want peace. You only need one to want war. And what we see currently, Russia bombing civilian infrastructure. In October, the number was 93% I think now it's more. 93% of Russian targets during this war have been civilian targets. Schools, hospitals, apartment buildings, energy infrastructure, to cause as much pain to people as possible. Under international humanitarian law, this is forbidden. You can't target civilians. This is what they do, and this is what they have done while pretending to negotiate. They have increased their attacks. Why they are doing this, and I was explaining this to our Indian colleagues as well, why they are doing this is because they are not moving on the battlefield. Actually, they're losing really a lot of soldiers on the battlefield. So it's not moving anywhere, like they are not conquering territories there. What they want to do is to push Ukrainian people to surrender by causing as much pain. Here it's warm. There it's minus 20 degrees. Imagine you don't have electricity or energy in minus 20 degrees. It is unbearable. So what we have asked our Indian colleagues is to raise this with the Russians, put the pressure on the Russians so that they would also want peace, because this is not good for Europe, this war. This war is not good for, southern countries because of, everything what is coming to the trade with wheat, everything that is deriving from there. And I think this is the convergence where we have with what we have with Indians. We both want peace and sustainable peace, so that this war does not return, even if you have peace agreement, but if it is not based on anything that can last, then you will just have more wars, and that is extremely bad. I think also deriving from this war is, the overall security theater. It's dangerous for everybody. So we see this in the same way, that this war has to stop, but for that we need to pressure the Russians.
Thank you. Ambassador Gayatri Kumar.
Good afternoon, Your Excellency. Congratulations on the free trade agreement, the breakthrough. As one of those who was in Brussels at the time that we put the whole thing back on tracks and started giving it momentum, the only worry that I have now is that despite EU walking the talk and setting an example on renewable energy, the fact about the CBAM and the deforestation regulations, how will, I hope the free trade agreement will, take care of that part of it that could be like a non-tariff barrier. And how is EU, which is itself having a problem with energy now? Energy is more expensive now because of the conflict. So is there something that you'd like to say about that, Excellency? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. First, I want to say that this is one of the things that in my job I have, encountered, that I have the coordination of the commissioners that are dealing with foreign policy, foreign partners in one way or the other. But actually the implications for the foreign policy very often come from the internal policies that we have in place. So really to have this thinking amongst the commissioners that if we come up with any kind of legislation or proposal, let's also do the analysis when it comes to our outside partners, what effect it has, because otherwise we have to deal with this, afterwards, and everywhere I go, it's always, CBAM, it's the deforestation rules, and it's about that. So right now, I mean, of course, these have been postponed, but the point is that we really need to take into account what kind of effect it has. At the same time, when I'm saying this, I'm also saying that when we talk about global challenges, and especially when you go to Indo-Pacific or Latin America, they are extremely worried about the climate change. So, you know, for global challenges, we need to have also global answers. Now, that is, of course, difficult if the superpowers say that we don't really care. But the question for us is, should we then back away from these things that are concern for everybody and say that, okay, after us, you know, it could be just whatever. And our approach has been different. No, we still deal with those policies to make the world better and more climate resilient. Now, is it easy in European Union? No, it is not. Again, because there is a superpower that is clearly saying that, you know, nothing of a sort exists. We shouldn't deal with any of it. So we also have, you know, the far right parties that are saying that none of it. And then it is very hard to actually have the public consensus behind why we need to do this, because people don't feel on their own, like what they feel on their skin is that energy prices are going up. And it is easy, being, you know, mortals, to say that, you know, what comes next after we are not here, I don't really care. But I think the role of leadership is also to educate, and that's why we are still, you know, pushing forward these policies, although it is getting harder and harder, and we have to keep in mind also what I said about the economic security being the factor for stability. So having this balance is what we try to seek. It is difficult.
Thank you. Do you have?
Yeah, EU and India had launched a Trade Technology Council a number of years ago, and after that we didn't hear very much about it. So what exactly are we expecting to hear on the technology front between the two groups?
This is a very good question. Thank you for that, because we were just discussing with the ministers today that, you know, for the Trade and Technology Council, it needs to have more substance and needs to have, you know, real implementation and real deliverables. Like, it's not, you know, meeting for meeting's sake, but what do we actually do? And we agreed to really map on our side, on their side, I mean, the real things that we could do together. And I see really, I mean, in terms of technology, when it comes to digital sphere, when it comes to the artificial intelligence, really to develop this together forward. Like, how should the regulation look like? I mean, how should we move with this to give our companies more possibilities to innovate and also more room on the you know, international market sphere of digital innovation and technological innovation, because it's also really competition. I think what is related to it, although it's not the, you know, real subject of it, is also critical raw materials and the cooperation on, you know, secure supply chains. So to answer your question directly is that, you know, we agreed that we will really put substance and deliverables on it, and that's why we do the thinking now, because before it was the assessment that it didn't have that much substance, really.
Rishabh?
Just an extension of what Pramit mentioned and what you also briefly spoke about. So critical minerals, supply chains itself. So where India is and where we want to be as a developed nation by 2047, a lot of the technologies that will determine how we produce electricity, but also on AI and others, of course we don't manufacture those, and of course they come a lot from China. Unfortunately, over the years, including Europe, we have also not built that capability for R&D, right? Technology, how do you develop some of these next generation technologies? What is the thinking, I would say, between collaboration, not just between industries, but many of the academic and research institutions between both the regions, I would say, in some way. Because I think if you have to talk about frontier technologies, the academic institutions here, the CSIRs here, including with the institutions in Europe, need to collaborate very actively for next generation technology, for the machineries that will manufacture, which will also require active mobility of people between both the regions. So it's one, but maybe we have to address through very important aspects that would eventually, of course, lead to both the regions achieving their own, I would say in some way, economic independence, if I may say, at least for some of these techs. So happy to hear your thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, we also discussed this, that we need to have more collaboration of researchers and scientists. And universities for that matter. Again, exchange information and to make both of us stronger. And there, people-to-people contacts are extremely important because again, you start to trust the other side if you know them, if you have, clear face to it, and if you know how they operate, you take up, concrete projects, and we really need to develop that further. Because again, our worry has been, well, let me put it this way, that for years the world was different. We were maybe naive in trusting and not really looking into the technological dependencies as well, because we didn't feel that it's a dependency. We didn't know that everybody else is also buying from them, and that means that in the end the other players go out of the market. And now we are in a situation where we have only one supplier. I mean, if you take chemicals, over 50% of chemicals come from China. Yeah. If you take the electric batteries, over 90%, critical raw materials, over 90%. I mean, the solar panels, all this, if you take them, or ships for that matter. So if you take them all separately, then I mean, we have clearly been behind because for one reason or the other. Now I think we have moved to a completely new age, which means that, like you said, whom can you really trust? So it's like probably like the other way around, like let's again, diversify. Let's find ways where we can cooperate to address our dependency on the third player. So I think this is our mutual interest, not only on the regulatory side, but actually from the companies and researchers and universities side. So really, I think there's a lot room for cooperation.
Thank you very much. But before we let you go, can you give us, for all of us, a sense of the conversations that you had today? What stood out for you? What was interesting? And just since you were there and we were not.
Well, first of all, like I said, the atmosphere was really good. So that is, I think, a really good starting point. Today, of course, it's sort of, not the end, but one of the milestones. So it's more festive, and maybe the discussions are not that open. But still, I mean, the few days ago when we had the discussion also on foreign policy and different things that are going around in the world, really listening carefully for India's perspectives, trying to understand also where India is coming from, and listening, whereas hoping that also Indian side is listening to our worries and where we are coming from. So I would say the atmosphere was really good. There was a lot of positive energy really going into concrete, whether it's about the technology council, council, like what is the concrete things that we can do, whether it's about also, the big geopolitical picture, what is happening in the world where we can also cooperate, or whether it's about, trade or research. So I saw a lot of really positive energy, like, we have the papers, but now let's make it in practice so that we will have more also economic cooperation, more. Right now, as we speak, Prime Minister Modi and President von der Leyen are having the business forum, and there was also, let's have the business forum the next time the EU summit is in India. So really, so that also the people-to-people contacts are between the companies, so that the investments actually start moving as well. So I would say a very, very practical, hands-on, let's do it approach.
Well, thank you very much. And if that's all the questions, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for taking such a nice, long answers, which we appreciate.